south central part of the state than they are in other parts of the state, and that is, if you're in an area of the state, mostly west of the Susquehanna, where your school district hasn't been growing, for some cases other than northern Allegheny County and Butler County, for 20 or 30 years, they haven't been building these schools. So those legislators in that area, I mean, not to say that they don't care at any level, but for them to put their neck on the line for an issue that does not impact their district is something that is, the reality is that it rarely happens. And we also have a situation where the architectural fees, every school getting designed differently, instead of having sort of 3 or 4 basic school models to work from. You know, you take a look at the building at Central High School. I mean, I had someone that played football in college. When my son and I, for a Father's Day gift, we had a helicopter ride from Rudy Park. I thought I was flying over Penn State's campus when I flew over the football field. And so that stuff impacts cost as well. So I just want to, you know, I just want to point out that for us in the south central part of the state and the Pocono area, which have been growing dramatically in population, this is more of an issue for us than in many parts of the state. And also there's other ways to tackle cost, and that is using the 3 or 4 basic designs in the school district as opposed to what happened in Central. In Central, just the heating bill in that school district is enormous because it's not energy efficient, because they designed a system that was meant to look good, and now even when they have to expand, which one day they will, because of the way they designed it, with the 4 different wings, they'll have to add on to each of the 4 different wings, as opposed to just adding on to one side of the building. That's a huge, that was a tactical financial blunder that they made on their own as well. But I just want to point out that in areas that aren't growing, this is not an important issue for them, which makes it tougher to challenge at the state level.
All right, thanks, Eugene. Matt's going to say a brief...
just very briefly. Senator Mike Brubaker, I think, had this last year, last session, and said that the prevailing wage costs taxpayers about $400 million a year in just school construction projects. So that's significant. But one thing that I think that Ron is touching on that is just critical for you all to hear, and that is when they go through this, you know who is going to go apoplectic? It's going to be the labor unions. They are going to flood his office. They're going to flood all of his colleagues. That's why we can't repeal prevailing wages, because organized labor still has a stranglehold on a lot of things that goes on in Harrisburg. And so until we, the people, the citizens, show up to support people trying to do the right thing, that want to repeal it, but say, hey, I can't get the votes, we have to put the pressure on those folks who aren't going to help them pass this. And that's where you folks really come in and have to come in and help stand alongside when our guys are doing the right thing.
Okay. I need to go back to the first question because I don't know that I heard an answer. The federal government does not have any place in education, and I want to know what you intend to do to get them out. Representative DePasquale, what do you intend to do to get the federal government out of the state where they do not belong?
We could choose to, at the state level, to not accept their budget. My instinct is that Governor Corbett, when he proposes a budget, will include the federal money in his budget. And I also believe when we pass our state budget, it will be in there, whether I'm a yes vote or a no vote on the budget. But we could choose to not accept the money. It's not about denying, this is not a 10th Amendment issue. We could choose not to accept the money.
Okay, and would you choose to not accept the money?
No, I would choose to accept the money.
Representative Miller, would you choose to not accept the money?
I would choose to accept the money. We can't afford not to. We have to win this battle in other ways. Understand, the worst thing we did was the 17th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. We took away the checks and balances. We have to work on fixing this. The 10th Amendment was a wonderful amendment. It has no teeth. There's no enforcement power for it.
Well,
and the states lost that enforcement power when we gave up appointing U.S. senators.
Representative Grove, would you agree to getting the federal government's money out of the state for education? Yes or no?
If we could get the federal government to stop sending us the money, it would do it. I mean,
okay, what do you plan to do to get the federal government out of education? Coming from someone who spent 12 years in public education, the money wasted is significantly more than 2%. that's just thrown in the garbage. Our kids aren't getting any smarter. What do you, as our representative, intend to do to get the federal government out of education in our state?
Advocate to our federal representatives to stop sending the money. Be smarter. Don't do it.
Okay,
Just like the stimulus money. Don't send it to us. Let us stand on our own.
Representative Seller, would you agree that the federal government we should stop taking money from the federal government for education?
Well, I agree with Ronald Reagan to get rid of the U.S. Department of Education. So. Again, it's an easy answer, but it's not an easy accomplishment. That is, again, as I think Seth said, is we have to fight for congressmen and U.S. senators who will literally stand up for the people again and for the states. This is it goes back, healthcare, education, transportation, all of these issues are being forced. And I make this clear to you, this isn't just on education. The healthcare bill, just to give you one point, I can't put it in dollars in education, but I can in healthcare. We have discovered, at a minimum, Pennsylvania will have to raise its taxes by roughly $9 billion to pay for healthcare. That's not counting what your federal is. Same thing with education. I just don't know the dollars there.
Okay. Senator Smucker, would you support getting the federal government out of education, not taking that money?
No.
Okay, now once again I want to go through the panel about House Bill 709. Representative DePasquale, would you support House Bill 709?
I don't know all the particulars of that particular bill. That's in Ron's committee, but I do think that there needs to be reform to prevailing wage, but I would not support getting rid of it entirely.
Okay, all right, Representative Miller and Grove, I know you do support it. Representative Saylor and Senator Smucker, do you support that?
Yeah, you know, I feel like I can't see people from down here, so I'm going to stand up in the future when I answer the questions. I absolutely would support that, and I will expand just a little bit on my previous question, because I support very much reducing mandates that are unnecessary and that don't support the, providing quality education for our kids. And I think there are many parts of what comes down from the federal government that are not helpful to educating our kids that we should be repealing. Unfortunately, we don't make those decisions, so we advocate for them with our federal legislators. But certainly at the state level, there's a lot that we can do to pull back mandates and pull back requirements that we place on our public education system that will both give more flexibility and will reduce the cost. So prevailing wage, again, as I said, I am the sponsor of 3 bills in the Senate that would make changes to prevailing wage, and certainly we'll be working hard to try to get that done this session.
Okay, thank you. The next question.
If I could just go back to that real quick. There's a history lesson here. Was anybody here alive pre-FDR? Anybody? All right. It was FDR that switched the tax burden upside down. Pre-FDR, your local taxes were the highest, and then the state, and then the federal government. It's when the U.S. government, or the economy tanked, and the federal government lured states into accepting its mandates when they issued unemployment compensation, and then came Medicaid relief. So that was actually the beginning of basically the end of free market enterprise and the beginning of really the socialist mandates coming down from the federal government and embedded the state governments. And that's a neat history lesson that I was reading some book a little while ago that actually kind of had the history of socialist programs in the country. But that was the hook. It was the federal government issuing lots of money to help states out and issued the helping hand. They took it. And now we have the reverse. Local governments are the local taxed, excluding school districts, your local municipalities. And then it's the state government, and then the federal government is so expansive. That's why they need to cut their budgets. Cut our budgets by cutting your budgets. Stop sending us the money.
Okay. So we have a lot to do to fix that, evidently, so we need some warriors in Harrisburg. If $1 billion is being cut from school funding, what mandates will be cut to compensate? You can't ask the school districts to cut money if you're not willing to cut the mandates you impose on them. So what mandates would you be willing to?
I think Lloyd has a great idea on standing up so you can at least see who's talking here. I think there's 2 things. Number one is we don't know, Governor Corbett will propose a budget where we hear that there'll be a proposed cut of $1 billion in education, public education. We're not sure what that will be or what line items it will come from. But there's no question that if you're going to reduce funding to the local school